Welcome back to the Secret Society of Man podcast. I am Ryan, and I'm here with my cousin Zach across the table from me today. We are doing episode 22 today, and we're going to start off with what's called the 4B movement, like 4B as in boy movement. I looked into this a little bit, and it looked like it actually came from South Korea, which I find very interesting, but I want to hear your perspective first before I kind of go down that rabbit hole a little bit. So You were the one that brought it up to me. So how did you find this, and what sparked your interest in this?
Well, yeah, it came from South Korea, but here in the U.S. and like mainly on TikTok, where this is mostly centered around, really became popular after Trump got elected. And so I started seeing it because, as I said on that podcast after the election, one of my favorite pastimes that first couple days after the election was watching the videos of liberal people having complete meltdowns. So then that died down after a couple days, but then the aftershock was the 4B movement. So a lot of these women who voted for Kamala, they decided that they are done with men. So the 4B movement is called that because of the words that represent the phrases, no sex with men, no relationships with men, no marriage to men, and another one along those same lines. Yeah, no giving birth to men's children. Yep. And so the words for that in Korean all start with a B. So it starts, it's 4B movement. Sure. And so there's a lot of different reasons why women will state that they are a part of this. A lot of different reasons under the sun that they all personally have experienced or whatever, that they're trying to, get revenge on men by taking part in this. But I think one common stream, because this is so politically motivated in the U.S. as a result of Trump's election, a lot of them cite basically that men have now voted against women by putting Trump into office, who apparently is going to ban all birth control and contraception and completely ban abortions. And so they're saying, well, if I can't have control over whether or not I'm going to have a baby, then I'm not going to have sex with men. So my initial reaction was that's kind of ironic, because that is what those guys that really believe that there should be no contraception and they think that abortions should be completely banned, they think that women are relying on the ability to have abortions too much, and they're relying too much on these different birth control options, and so they're not being conservative enough in their relationships or picky enough with who they have sex with, and that's why they're ending up with so many babies that end up not being cared for, coming from broken families. And so they think that they should be more picky and more conservative with their sexual acts and choices. That's why they want that banned. And in a weird way, in protest to that, these women are being more conservative with their sexual partner choices. That's what they wanted in the first place. So it's like they're proving those people right. And those conservative men are actually getting what they wanted out of women by women making this choice against them.
Yeah, so what I found interesting, and the reason why I thought this was super interesting from South Korea, and it said it in an article that I read, which is, Asian culture, for the most part, right, is very family-based, very different than what the U.S. is. Like, everyone knows about the nuclear family of the U.S., like stuff like that, like a wife, 2 kids, a dog, a middle-range house. That's the American dream, right? But what's interesting is when I first read that it came from South Korea, I was like, wow, like out of all the cultures where like it's expected of you to get married and have kids, that is considered success for women for the most part. I know it also delved a little deeper into as far as the South Korean, it sounds like they may have had more of a bigger reason than American women, because over there they were saying that there is such a large proportion of like domestic violence that's part of it, is like to help like save women from getting beat, like just abstain from being with men at all, and that'll protect you, right, for the most part. Whereas here you got Trump coming in office and they're just like, nope, we're shutting it down and whatever. And by the way, we've said before, and so has Trump, it's up to the states. Like, it's not overall banned anywhere. Like, go to California, New York, wherever you want to go, Minnesota. It doesn't, it's not all going to be banned from every single state. That's not a thing. Like, I remember in the debate, they were like, will you sign that bill? And Trump's like, it's impossible because it's not going to happen. And they kept, like, pushing him on it, and he said, it's literally not possible. Like, it's not my problem anymore. It's up to the states.
Mm-hmm.
So when people are like, well, it's about the abortion and stuff like that, it's like, Kate, but he has said it's up to the states. He's never said that he's going to go after complete, like, no tolerant, abortion. Like, it's never happened.
Yeah, well, I guess they're worried about, like, the Project 2025 type thing, like these.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people that support Trump, or I should say a lot of these, like, or all of these really conservative groups that legitimately are out there pushing to ban all birth control and, abortion based on religious purposes, they do tend to support Trump, right? And so there is, at the very least, a one-sided correlation between Trump and these sorts of groups. And I mean, objectively, I would say that Kamala was probably a more pro-woman choice than Trump, right? Yep. But at the end of the day, though, I mean, I think they're taking it a little bit too personally about who it was voted for. But to say they're taking a little bit too personally, like the decision to vote for Trump. Like, it was kind of ironic is anytime that you're a man online in these spaces and you try to, like, say, oh, this isn't going to work, this is dumb, like, right. Men aren't going to kneel down before you because you're making the decision to withhold sex, they'll get mad and they'll say, well, that's not the point. It's not about men. We're doing this for our own best interest. Right. The whole point is that it's not supposed to be about you. And so there's no point in even talking about how it's going to affect you. But at the same time, a man's decision to vote for Trump, they're making that all about them, when really it's not about them. Like, correct. So they are being just as self-centered about this as, they're claiming that we are about this 4B thing. Now, going back to the origins of it, like, every single video of one of these women trying to explain, the origins of this, they always mention, it's from South Korea, everything we just talked about. And they try to frame it like it was this revolutionary thing. Like, I've seen these women try to explain, and, the men in South Korea, they have no idea what's going on. Like, they're so confused why women aren't trying to sleep with them anymore. It's to the point where, their birth rate has fallen so drastically because women are just fed up with men. But that is completely a false correlation. Sure. Where there was a video from a South Korean woman who heard about this, and she basically just said, like, nobody really knows what this is in South Korea. Like, this is my first time hearing about this, and I live in South Korea. It's a radical fringe movement over there, and anytime you see a video claiming that this is, like, a huge success is a complete fabrication. The birth rates have been declining in South Korea for a long time. And in fact, we kind of mentioned this in a previous episode. That's a worldwide issue right now in all first world countries. Yep. And there's many reasons for that. It is a bad thing, but the reasons are plenty, right? It's more about economy and people's busy schedules and, how that nuclear family you just mentioned, it isn't really a thing anymore for the average American. Like, those are the reasons that those birth rates are falling, even in South Korea. A lot of those Asian countries have even less work-life balance than we have. It's even harder to find a partner. They might have, bigger, like, gender disparity in the population. And these are reasons why the birth rates are falling. Young people are just caring less about having kids. It's not because women all took a stand and had a revolutionary moment in the last 10 years. It's complete bullshit.
Yeah, like, I hate to say it, but, like, there's just not a big enough movement to literally shut down populating. Like, if they wanna take sex off the table, then a guy's just gonna move on to somebody else. Like, at some point, you're gonna find yourself being 80 years old, and you're like, damn, like I wasted my life.
Yeah.
Like that sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because the innate, what human beings have, caveman mind, is make kids, eat, have fun, and die, is basically what the thought process is, right? Like, and if you're taking that away from your natural instincts, like, I feel like that's just a horrible life. Like, you can push it away as much as you want, but you can't tell me that there's not even an inkling of like, yeah, I miss doing that, or I miss passing that opportunity up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard women that are like sort of getting older that hadn't have kids yet, that they sort of have to make the decision. I
Yep.
mean, but if you are a woman and by the time you get to the age of 35 to 40 and you haven't had kids, especially if you are not yet married and you don't even know who you would have kids with, at some point you got to make a decision. Like, either I figure this out on the fast track right now and hit up the speed dating cafes,
Yeah.
or
Just
I
for lunch or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Or I just decide not to do it, right? And I mean, this is just going to be my life. And even without this 4B movement, women sort of have to make the decision if they're very like career oriented and things like that. I mean, this is just one of the decisions that modern women have to make because they have more opportunities, but those opportunities can come with sacrifices. And it's entirely possible that you end up regretting that decision, especially if you are somebody where all of your friends are having families and things like that. And now, like, because a lot of these women, you'll see, I spent some time trolling these, like the subreddit for 4B, right? And they'll post these stories about how 7 friends got together and they bought a mansion, so they don't have to rely on husbands or whatever. But it's like, how long is that going to last? Like,
correct.
Are they all going to stick in solidarity with each other forever, or are they slowly going to fall apart one by one where they get into relationships and now they have to move in with the other guy? Like, that's not going to last forever. Like, they're not going to be 80 years old in this mansion just like having a great time.
And what's your end goal? Like, oh, I lived by myself for that long. Great. Like, who cares? That reminds me of a video I saw. Candace Owens. Do you know who she is?
Yeah.
Okay. Candace Owens was at like a college, and this like trans person came up, which no hate against trans. This is just what I saw in the video. Trans person comes up and they're like, what would you say? The trans person asked Candace, what would you say if I told you I was comfortable in my body and this is the choice I made and I'm happy with it? She's like, congratulations, welcome to America. Like, what do you want me to do? Pat you on the back? Like, at some point, like, you can make your own decisions. But I think a lot of people, like, you need to realize a lot of people don't give a shit. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, no one fucking cares. I mean, it's great. Like, it's a noble thing. If that's what you want to stick to, and that's, like people tying themselves to trees and shit for whatever, climate stuff. If that's what you want to do, more power to you, dude. That's the beauty of America, right? But people don't care. Like, that's just how it is. Like, there's climate change for a reason because no one gives a shit. Like, the oceans are boiling because no one cares. Like, it just, until, like, people start to starve to death and stuff and it's too late, then they'll start to care.
Yeah, I think that this movement would only have steam as long as people are talking about it outside of the movement. Like, I think that what gives them fuel is they'll hear conversations like this from men talking about it, and they'll be like, "Oh, this is exactly why we're doing
Correct.
this," and maybe they're right. But in that case, then they shouldn't be making so much content about it. They say, like,
Correct.
"Oh, well, why are they so bothered? Like, this is because it's all about them. It's so self-centered." And it does bother me on some level. It annoys me. I don't know what your reaction is, but this stuff does annoy me.
Okay.
Like,
in what way?
Well, yeah. So I asked myself that. I'm like, are they right? Because it does annoy me, and really, it doesn't affect me in any way.
Right.
Because I'm about to be married.
You have your own life.
And my wife is not gonna join the 4B movement.
That'd be a problem.
That would be a problem.
Yeah.
For sure. But it doesn't. So this really doesn't affect me realistically.
No.
So why do I have this annoying feeling where like I'm seeking out videos about it, about like how dumb it is and things like that? And I realize that it's similar to whenever you're in school and then you have that one kid that someone ever do this to you, dude, when you're like in like 4th grade. They sit there like this.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, and they're right in your face,
And
dude.
then you're like, this is annoying me. They're like, well, why does it bother? I'm not doing anything.
Right.
I'm not touching you.
Yeah, dude.
Why does it bother you so much? I can do whatever I want. I'm not touching you.
It's true. It's true. So,
it's
so
like-
that's how you feel.
Yeah, because they make the content about it. If it was something where women just silently just stopped dating men and doing all this stuff, well, then that's great. It wouldn't affect me, and I'd barely even know about it. They would know about it. They're making their own choice for themselves. Maybe they have had bad experiences with men. Some women cannot find a good man for the life of them. Like do you know women where every guy they've ever dated is just a piece of garbage?
You murdered 3 people, like.
Yeah, it's like why can't you find a good guy?
So I saw there's actually a lot of science behind that about like fixing your man type of thing, like wanting to like fix the person. There's like a lot. Jordan Peterson, you know him, like Irish. I don't know if he's Irish, but he has Canadian.
He sounds
but
Irish.
he sounds Irish. But he
sounds like a leprechaun.
But he's talked about that. He's talked about how women, especially when they're younger, have this weird. There's actually a reason, like psychological reason behind it, that they choose to go for guys that are more aggressive and risky than they do the nice guy, right? And everyone knows that. Like nice guys always lose, especially like in high school and stuff like that. But he said that's an actual like phenomenon. That's a psychological thing that women, and some mature out of it and some don't.
Well, he says that the reason is because a lot of guys, when they're in like junior high or high school, they'll have that nice guy complex, and I kind of had that. But like where you'll be like, oh well, I'm a nice guy and I'm not going to hurt anybody and things, and you're confused why women go for the guys that are more aggressive and bullies and things. Like there was this one girl that I had a crush on at one point, and she had a crush on this other dude, right? And I thought he was an asshole or whatever. And then like a few weeks later, he like throws like a water bottle at her head in the middle of class.
Oh my
God. It broke her little heart, right? But it was just like, well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm not surprised by this. Are you surprised? But I was confused. I couldn't understand it. But what Jordan Peterson says is like, it's not good to be like a harmless guy. Like that's correct. That's not a virtuous thing.
Correct.
Like it's virtuous to be a guy that's dangerous but civilized. Like a woman wants a guy that can like repress the aggression but has it if it's needed. Yep. And that's like a big lesson that I think a lot of men need to learn. And I think it has a lot to do with what we're told growing up and like from all the media and things and all the stories, like you're supposed to be this, nice, harmless guy. But I think as you grow up and you try to, you learn to fight, or you become more physically capable and things like that, then you can kind of see where that balance can be had. Like you can still be a good person even though you know how to fight, or like how to actually use your aggression and things like that. So I think it makes sense why they have that instinct. But some women, like they're missing the civilized part, or like they there's no balance. They go after guys that, I mean, even not even necessarily aggressive, but are just like fucked up guys, right? And just like, what are you doing? Like, how many lessons do you need to learn? Like, it's just crazy. They don't. You're supposed to, when you date, you're supposed to like dial it in as you go. Like you at first you're going off of nothing,
right?
And you're just kind of like going off.
Feel it out.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but as you see the mistakes, you should be able to recognize that going forward. By the time you're in your 20s, you should be able to dial it in. Some women, they can't dial it in, and so if you're that kind of person that gets burned time and time again, it might be healthy to join the 4B movement as like a self-improvement. Where you're like, I need to just take a break. I need to focus on myself. Yeah. And that's a perfectly valid thing. And no guy is going to be annoyed by women having a movement where they're improving themselves by focusing on themselves and not putting so much stock into their partners. Right. But that's not, and they claim that that's what this movement is. They're like, we're decentering men from our lives, and we're not living our lives for men anymore. That would be fine. What they're really doing is by putting out the content and making it so public and listing, what they hate about men, they are bringing men into it, and they are centering it around men. Like, we're not doing that. By being annoyed by it, I'm not making it about me.
Right.
They're making it about me by by basically generalizing. And I think one last thing about that is, I think that another part that annoys me and probably a lot of guys that have these similar conversations is that I think that they are sort of disregarding or devaluing the experience of people that are in relationships that are healthy. Like, I feel like they're sort of dismissing like Christy's experience being in a relationship. And they probably would look down on a woman like Christy that is an anti-woman, but she was able to find a healthy relationship and start a family. They would dismiss her experience.
And I guess in some of this might be a twisted mindset because maybe they do just keep striking out and they're just so cynical in any other guy that they've ever even thought about. But like my question would be, like, if you're decentering men, and it's not about the man, like, what in the past have you done that is all about the guy, right? So like, if you can answer that question for me and be like, well, I massaged his feet every night. Okay, why? Like, was he threatening to destroy your face if you didn't? Because if he was, that's not normal. Like, that's the problem, right? Like, you need to look at what's normal here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, for real, dude. Like, you can't, like, it's like makeup. I remember I told my wife, I said, why do you guys put mascara on? I have never looked at a woman and be like, damn, she's got good eyelashes. I could care less about mascara.
And actually, so Christy got her makeup done for practice run for the wedding.
Sure.
And she came home with like these fake eyelashes. I'm like, this is so dumb. Like, I think you should just not even get those.
Right.
You
like,
know?
what is it about?
Yeah.
And the problem is like a lot of women that I've heard that I've asked that question to will say, well, it's so we don't get eaten by the other women.
Well,
like,
yeah,
if
exactly. Yeah.
So there's the problem, dude. Like, that's the fucking problem. You know what I mean? Like, you ever see those memes where they're like, oh, guys are just, they're so, what is it? They're so satisfied by simple things. And it's some dude sitting on a floor playing Nintendo 64. It's like, yeah, because we don't need like a lot of shit in our life. Mm-hmm. Like, just give us some nostalgic like feelings and we're good. You know what I mean? Like,
that same scene you just described of like whenever you're a guy where like you live in an apartment for the first time, like all you have is like you just have like a mattress and then an Xbox, right? So I actually thought of something similar. So one of the answers that these women would have to your question of like, what are you doing that centers around men? They would just list all the things that they do that pulls more weight than men. They're like basically saying that we give free labor by, taking care of the house and then having to go through the pregnancy, and like we spend more time, doing the chores and things like that. Well, like, men get to go live their lives, right? And I think overall, I mean, there is that imbalance.
Okay.
And I was thinking, like, why is that? Like, why do men tend to neglect those household chores and things like that? Whereas, like, women, like, Christy's just constantly cleaning. And it's like, I understand wanting to have, like, a clean house, but it's like, can't you just, like, relax? Like, all of her free time is spent cleaning. And I think it's because that's a high priority, is they want to have, like, a clean space. It's an instinctual thing.
But for you, it's not.
For me, so, yeah, for, like, the dishes, for instance, like, like women probably do more dishes than men on average. The reason for that is because if there wasn't a woman around, I wouldn't own dishes. Like,
true.
I wouldn't have plates. Yeah,
paper plates.
Yeah, if like, that. But like, whenever I would live in a studio apartment, I would make my dinner. 6 brats. You got 3 different flavors, 2 of each.
Yep.
Cut them up on a cutting board.
Yep.
You eat them right off the cutting board.
That's it.
I don't
Paper
even move
towel.
it to a table. I pull my chair up to the counter.
Yes.
Eat off of the cutting board.
That's it.
Less dishes, more efficient. That's
when
how
I lived in my house before I met Carly, same thing. I had plates because people bought me plates and stuff. Never use them. Pizza, like I said, I would tear a square of paper towel, put it on there. That's what I eat it off of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there is no like, or I eat it from the box on a table. Like, I don't need to do that. And it just doesn't, I'll do it if it becomes overwhelming.
That's why we like camping, bro.
Yeah.
We eat in our house the same way we would around a campfire. Yeah. Just minimal.
That's it, dude. Eat a fish raw, dude. Just like a grizzly bear, But man, it's true. Like, there's a lot of, and like I said, if you want to do the 4B movement, that's awesome. But like, don't expect it to change the world because it won't. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Like, there's too many other venues and areas where men can be with women, whether it's legal or illegal. That's bottom line. Like, it doesn't matter. You're not going to change the system. In fact, we've talked about this before. Like, the cultures are already starting to change where women are becoming more masculine. Like, that is a thing. So when they have this complex of, well, men are, they're too dominant or they're too, it's like, well, that pendulum is starting to swing a little bit. And not only that, but like, if you want a bad boy guy, like that also is going to start diminishing when they expect guys to be more stay at home and like stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it's going to be very interesting to see where this goes over the next decade or two. Like, I'm curious to see if it ever even comes to anything that, like you said, the woman in South Korea is like, I've never heard of that. I don't know what that is. I mean,
and
I
like think McDonald's. I think that this movement is not going to go anywhere. Okay. I mean, the general change in gender roles might, like you just said.
Yeah.
But as far as the 4B movement, I mean, it's already dead in the water. I mean, we kind of missed the boat on this already because, like I said, it was more back when like the Trump got elected. I mean, that's when you were seeing videos of women shaving their heads, saying, "I'm done with men." Did you see any of those? The head shaving? Oh, I mean, there's countless. Okay, yeah. So like, go look this up on TikTok. Or something, or what? It's women. They're like, they're saying, you're like, yep, this is it. I'm done with men. Like, I'm not gonna date men. I don't want men to talk to me. I don't want them to breathe next to me. And they're sitting there shaving their head off. Like, they have regular hair, like long hair, and then they're going completely shaved, more shaved than my head, right? Oh, they are doing it because they're like, well, I'm so done with trying to, take care of my hair and have luscious hair and things. But what's funny is, like you said, they don't. I mean, for the hair, men care about that. They don't care about the eyelashes. They care about the hair.
Sure.
But other women are going to look at you just as crazy as any other men, maybe even more crazy, because I feel like men would just dismiss a woman with, that's completely shaven.
Yeah.
But other women might look into it more. Like, I don't even think a woman's going to want to be your friend if you do that. Because it's just crazy behavior,
That's what I'm saying.
It's a full-on temper tantrum.
I don't sit on a bus or something and, like, think about impressing this woman next to me. I don't care. Like, that's the problem. Like, and I feel like a lot of men, now again, there's players out there and stuff like that. But, like, at the end of the day, like, they don't care. Like, it just doesn't happen. Like, I don't seek you out specifically like a hunt. You know what I do? If I did, like, that's jail. Like, that's prison. So, like, I don't understand. I just don't get the whole, like, just staunch men, all this, all that, right? How many times we talked about men do the hardest jobs. They do the most dangerous jobs. Men have the most fatalities at work. Men get paid more because of that, okay? How many freaking women do you see working on a freaking ocean oil rig? Like, probably not many. Why? Because you're away from family. It's a hard physical job. You get paid up the ass, but like it's been proven. Jordan Peterson's talked about it. Like, it's proven that women the reason why they're in caregiving and stuff is because that is what they're more like cornerstoned around. Like, it's weird seeing a registered nurse that's a dude. Like, congrats. Like, that's awesome. You're getting paid good money. But like, if someone says, yeah, Nurse Peterson is going to be in to take your next shift, I would imagine most people probably think it's going to be a woman walking through the door. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So. Yeah,
I agree. And you mentioned like how gender roles are sort of changing. But so, I mean, on one hand, you have this 4B movement, right? So, and the women that are just trying to completely reject that whole system. But then, and this is once again maybe more online, right? But I feel like online is like a exaggerated version of what's really going on, because like I don't know any woman in real life that probably even knows what 4B is. Okay, it's just that because I am enraged by it, I look into it a lot. It tends to push that towards me, right? But I think a lot of women don't know what it is in real life. Then, on the other hand, though, you also have another movement, which is the trad wife movement. You ever seen that?
The what?
Like trad wife. It's traditional wife.
No.
So you have
never heard of
all
that.
these women that make content about how they're a traditional wife, and so they don't work. They are the nuclear family mother.
Okay.
And they even, a lot
Trophy
of them,
wife is what they would call
a
it.
lot of them even have, like that sort of hairstyle, right? And
Sure.
so like there's a movement to go back to that, where some women are taking a lot of pride in just staying home and being a caregiver, and they really enjoy that, and they're taking pride in it. And so there's this weird like push and pull
Yeah.
with women trying to figure out what they should be proud to be, and that you don't really see that with men, really. I mean,
Not really.
the closest thing I can think of is like the manosphere type thing, where like a lot of men who probably are like the nice guy syndrome type guys that never really figured it out, and they get really frustrated at women. Well, then they end up, following Andrew Tate and things,
Or becoming a serial killer or something like that.
Yeah, or that, or the men going their own way was a movement, 5-6 years ago, where it basically was the 4B movement, where they just said, where they get divorced and all their money gets taken, things like that. They have bad experiences with women. They keep getting cheated on. Well, then they decide that they're just going to go and they go their own way. They're not going to deal with women, really. And women were upset by that. But this is now the woman doing it. And so I feel like if you take gender out of it, it seems like a healthy thing if you just don't use it to attack the other gender.
Yeah.
Like, just do your own thing. Like, it can be
Right.
totally healthy.
Right.
But
Become a nun.
yeah.
They're abstinent,
exactly. That's what they're doing right now.
Like,
These women
like-
that are like trying to be liberal and they hate conservative men, they're becoming nuns.
Except they wouldn't agree because they'd be like, well, I'm not going to worship Jesus because he's a man, So the other thing I read in this article too that I was reading about it was they were saying that they would confirm, like, you'd have to scan an ID to go in the women's bathroom. Like you have to be woman to be in there. And then I thought about it and I'm like, okay, so we have this whole like non-binary shit. But then now you want to go into saying, well, you have to be a woman to enter the bathroom. What if I tell you I'm a woman?
Yeah.
Then where are we at? Because now what are we doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's a different faction called trans-exclusionary radical feminist.
is that for real?
That's a real thing.
Oh my God, dude! I thought you were making that up.
No. So
Holy
that's
shit.
where you're
What does that mean?
That's where you're a feminist, a radical feminist, right? But you don't want trans to be included in that because you think that
Oh,
the trans movement is a way to infringe on women's spaces, right? And so, you're feminist, but for real women, not trans
do you
women.
think this whole like the binary or whatever's happening with that? Do you think that is causing the big push and pull from like traditional wife to nuns? Like, do you think that's like a thing? Like, do you
Well-
think that's causing mud in the water, or like, what do you think?
I think that, think that is a facet of it. I think right now, like, women especially are really having to figure out what that means, like to be a woman. Like, what role does that have in society? Who's allowed to claim that and who's not? And, like, what expectations should women have? And so, and for whatever reason, like, I feel like they have this, like, instinct to make that be, like, one thing. Like, I think they rely on like a general consensus from women to decide what a woman is more than like a man does. I feel like it's almost easier for men to like not be self-conscious about like and think about like, well, what makes a man in this society? And maybe that's because of the patriarchy, so we don't have to ask ourselves that.
Sure.
But, like, you don't have a lot of that discussion. You have like the alpha male discussion
Sure.
where like, maybe what should a man be, or like a lot. I think it focuses a lot on the pride of being a man. I think everybody agrees on like what a man should be and like what's a virtuous man. But I think that women are really trying to ask themselves now, like, what are the virtues that a woman can have that's most admirable in society? And I think they feel like, a lot of them feel like that some of the stuff that they're expected to do is from a man's perspective, and they reject those virtues that like the trad wife would think are most important because they think that comes in service of a man. And so they go like the complete opposite way. So I think what will happen over the next 10, 20 years is that'll probably settle down. But women just seem like they're not comfortable with themselves right now. They're going through this weird phase where, like, and it's probably a natural progression because there was a time not too long ago when they probably really didn't have a say in that, where when the trad wife was the only option and women really didn't have as much say or as much of a voice, then, I mean, you did have to be put into a certain mold. You were raised a certain way. You were expected to behave a certain way, especially in like religious communities.
Yep.
And then now that that's not required, I think that they need to ask themselves, well, how much of those old expectations do we want to keep for ourselves? Like, is everything we were told to be before bullshit because we were forced to do that? Or should we keep some of those things and then add some of our own things to it as well? And so they got to figure out
But
what
how
that
do you
is.
do that when you have 50 other factions coming in saying they're this, whatever the hell you just spit out, they're that and this and that and this and that? Like, how do you... It's easier to settle when you guys have one ideology, and then once you step on that, you move to the next step, and then you just keep moving down. Then eventually you can start to spread out. But if you don't have a foundation in the beginning, what are you doing? Like, you can't... It's a house of cards, right? I mean,
yeah, well,
you know
I think
what mean?
they just need to give up on the idea that there needs to be this like united thing. Like, you know, you don't need to be united as women being one thing. Like, I mean, they're all individuals.
Correct.
And it's fine to be in, you know, little separate groups, you know, but I think that there's a lot of this content and things like that is to project to other women, like, this is how you should be. Like, one lady that you'll see in all these videos from conservative people critiquing the 4B movement, one of the most popular women videos of women shaving their head, she was saying, like, if you're married to a man, like, leave him. If you have a boyfriend, leave him right now. Like, you know, they're calling for other women to join this movement, thinking that they either think that these women are like they're in these relationships against their will,
Yeah, it's
and they can't fathom that like a woman would actually be happy with that, or they think that the person's brainwashed into thinking that they're happy in their relationship.
Which does happen with domestic violence sometimes.
Well,
Like,
yeah, I mean,
you
I've
know,
seen crazy situations like that.
yeah.
I know women that should be a part of the 4B movement. I
Yeah.
would recommend it, right? It's those people that end up in those relationships.
Yeah.
But I think it's just the discounting of women that actually are happy and the expectation that, like, all women need to be miserable like that. And I think what ends up happening to these women that decide to not have relationships is that they do tend to just be, like, miserable women and not necessarily like regretting, oh, I wish I would have had kids. Like, I don't think a lot of them come to that realization. But one thing I've noticed reading people that are participating in these groups, they were saying, like, what are you guys doing for the holidays, right? And so many of these women were talking about how, like, oh, well, I cut off my family long ago. Like, they all, like, cut off their friends and their family. And so, like, they're just completely isolating themselves. And they cut them out because of whatever ideology they have. Like, oh, my brother voted for Trump, so I haven't talked to him in 2 years or whatever. And so they just, like, cut these ties. We have people in our family who have, you know, done the, oh, we're cutting people off type thing, right? And it just further puts them into isolation. And then the only connection they have with people is the other people on the internet
Correct.
that are a part of this fringe group. And so they think that that's, like, the right way to think because everyone they know thinks that same way because they've kicked everybody out of their life that thinks differently.
I don't think people, like, let's say you live in California and you're talking to someone from Maine, so literally across the country, and they're like, she's like, yeah, she's convincing you, you guys are FaceTiming all the time and shit. Like, that person that is convincing you to do this is not going to be there for you in your worst times. It's not going to happen. I have the same conversation with drug addicts all the time. Like, if you overdose, your friends are still going to move on. Like, you're going to be dead and they're just going to go somewhere else. They can't always be there for you, and they're making decisions for your life that is going to affect you physically and mentally in a negative way. Like, you might feel positive, like, up front, right? Like, there's always that liberation of, like, ripping the Band-Aid off. Like, yeah, I did it. Well, what happens in 4 months? Like, where are you at? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not talking to anyone. You're probably staring at a wall. You're watching the same, TV. What happens if your friend from Maine doesn't contact you at 7:00 that night? What are you gonna do? Are you just gonna sit there? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you just gotta.
I don't even think they're making real friends online. I mean, they're just posting. I mean, it's no different than like the incel type guys that I guess are really on the opposite end of this, where I mean, they feel slighted by women, and so they try to go online for help from other guys that are having trouble getting laid, and they end up wanting to kill women. And these are the school shooter type guys. Like, they just end up in these communities online where all they're doing all day is posting online with guys that also can't get laid. Then it becomes, oh, well, it's because women only go for assholes. And like, for like me, who used to have like that nice guy syndrome, one of the reasons why I was able to get out of that is because I was able to like experience, the other side of things and like try to find a different perspective. But if I would have just stayed inside all day and went online and just only read stuff that supported my beliefs that women are just dumb and they are shallow and they only like assholes, well then like that's what I would believe all women are.
Correct.
And so these women are going through the same thing where they're just on spaces. All they read is other women that support their ideas. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. So they cut people off because of the men in their family go against they voted for Trump or whatever, and they just have it in their idea that if they vote for Trump they're a bad person. Sure. Like, they voted because they want me to die, right? Do you know who Anna Kasparian is, or the Young Turks?
Oh,
yeah, it's like Cenk Uygur, and so they have a show on YouTube, and it's like an independent news channel, but they are definitely like liberal leaning source, okay? Yeah. But Anna Kasparian is the girl that's on there, and but she's recently been becoming more and more conservative. So you get to like hear her talk about this transformation. She lives in, I think, New York, and she's just like shared experiences where she ended up getting like assaulted by a homeless guy, and how liberal people tend to be very protective of homeless people. But it was the reaction from when she told the story, how she was attacked by the left because she was making homeless people out to be bad, where people didn't care about what had happened to her because it was about a homeless person. So she started to see some like hypocrisy there. And then she's told another story about how like she used to think anybody that voted for Trump is a monster. But then, you don't know everybody's political leanings, right? She was watching the news or something like that in like a common area of her apartment building, and she was with this guy that she was like good friends with. Like, they always had each other's back, like they're just like good neighbors, right? And she respected this guy, and then he made a comment to her about like something in support of Trump, right? And so she realized he was a Trump supporter, and it made her challenge her beliefs about what it means for somebody to be a Trump supporter, because she respected this person and knew that he was a good person and they were friends, right? But then now he is a Trump supporter, and she didn't know that before. But that doesn't take away from the fact that he's a good person and she respects him. Like, is she supposed to throw away all of her lived experience now because she knows that he voted for Trump? Well, she said, no, it doesn't make any sense. And I think it's that thought that a lot of these people end up missing, where like you have this family that you've been cool with your entire life, that's like you've seen every single holiday and you've had lots of love from them and you respect them, and you've never seen them do anything bad. They don't rob people, right? They're good people. But then you find out that they voted a certain way, and now all of a sudden you're going to throw away all of your experience with them just because you have this idea of what a Trump supporter is. And then they cut them off. And so they're not allowing themselves to live experiences that are going to change their views. And that's, whether it's from women or men, right, that's a really bad trap to fall into.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's crazy to think about people that are willing to literally isolate themselves from men or like the other gender. Like like I said, the part of your caveman brain is to like be with the other gender. Like that's like literally basic living. So it's interesting to see that. It's interesting when I first read that it came from South Korea. I'm like, wow, that's super interesting. But yeah, cool. So drones have been in the news quite a bit. in the last, I would say, probably 2 weeks. I'm sure you've seen videos of it. I mean, all the news channels have been covering it. Big drones, too, not just like your little ones, like big, like 3-4 feet long drones.
Some of them are the size of SUVs.
Yeah. And, they're saying that the Biden administration has come out and said nothing to worry about. However, I've seen videos of a lot of senators saying, like, we need to look into this more, like, what is going on. It's like the ridiculous time when a fucking spy balloon from China went from, it was China, right? Mm-hmm. China or Russia. Went from Alaska to fucking South Carolina. And they shot it down when it finally fucking reached the East Coast. And they knew about it well before that. Like, bro, what are you doing? Like, what? Like, this is not good. And I'm not saying, like, this is Chinese drones. It's just strange that there's this phenomena. However, here's what I thought about. Do you remember back in 2020? It was either 2020 or right before that. There was, like, that weird, like, clown shit going on.
I don't know that.
Okay.
What is that?
So people were, like, dressing up in clowns and, like, scaring people all around, like, this area, like Minnesota.
Okay, well, one time, Christy, she has a story where she did see a guy dressed as a clown with a machete.
Yes. So that was a thing.
That's a thing?
That was a thing.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, if you go on YouTube, search up the clown movement, and you'll see, like, they'll stand in the street with a bat and, like, chase after cars and shit. So what it made me think of is, like, if people are flying drones and you start seeing this hysteria, it makes me wonder if, like, other people want to jump on that train and also fly their drones to, like,
be
absolutely more, you know what I mean? Like, part of the...
They want to be on the news.
Yeah. But, some of these drones are flying over military bases and shit like that. Like, I don't understand how, like, even with that, like, how those things not fucking shot down. You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? In fact, the FAA had to shut down for a brief time. They had to shut the airspace down because there was too many fucking drones in the air.
Right.
Like, where did that come from? You know what I mean?
So I didn't really know what to make this, and I still don't, because I guess nobody really does, right? But I was trying to listen to people that had stuff to say about this, that they think they might know what's going on. The problem is that I used to ask, like, whatever happened to the UFO people that would, like, say, the government's hiding, UFOs. You used to hear a lot about UFOs, like alien type things, right?
Yes.
They would have this, like, when I was watching the videos of these drones, I was like, this is just like the alien videos back in the day. It's the same exact thing, and it's the same people that used to talk about UFOs are now the people talking about foreign drones, right? Yeah. It's the same people. So, like, I'm sitting here listening to a 45-minute like news investigation on this where they're interviewing so-called experts. These people do not seem credible. I mean, they're very Alex Jonesy type guys, except, even less credible than Alex Jones. And it just seems like they're just being like, they're just reading too much into it. Like, I don't really want to listen to what these people have to say.
Right.
And it makes me an anti-conspiracy theorist when it comes to this type of thing. Like, it's the type of people that make you not believe what they're saying just because they're not a credible person. I'm sure there's somebody I could listen to that would be able to talk about this that would make me more suspicious of what's going on. But so I had to ask myself after watching these people talk, like, what is the simplest explanation? Because, like you said, I mean, they're flying over military bases. I mean, the military, it's not like Joe Biden has destroyed the military and took all the steel out of them, right? Like, if there was actually a threat over a military base, they would shoot it down. Like, so you have to think that if they're not doing that, there must be something where there's really no threat. They're not just letting these attacks happen or these surveillance happen. Like, if you tried to fly a drone over Area 51, it's going to get shot down, guaranteed. Yep. Okay? So is it possible that it really is nothing?
Yeah, for sure, dude. That's Occam's razor, right? Like you said, the most simplest idea is usually the answer. It very well could be. But I was just curious, like, when I first read this story, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, bro, they're posting, like, even in my neighborhood page and stuff, people are starting to say shit. They're like, oh, my God, I saw, like, 3 drones fly over us. And it's like, okay, well, like, people can fly drones.
Yeah,
like,
people have drones.
Like, I don't understand that. Like, even real estate uses drones all the time, like,
Yeah, for taking pictures. Or even just, drone enthusiasts, they like to take, panoramic views of the city and things like that.
yeah.
Is it illegal to fly a drone over someone's backyard?
Oh, man. So there's such a gray area there. So it's like, in your house, you have an expectation of privacy, right? So there would be an issue if you took a drone and put it right in front of like somebody's back window and like watching them shower, right? That's an issue. It's the same thing as like you can't, like that's peeping Tom stuff, like whatever. However, you don't own like the airspace over your home. Like you just don't. To a certain extent, like, are you nicking the roof? You know what I mean? Like if you're hitting the roof, then that's a problem, right? But if you're 50 feet in the air or people's, like, there's nothing they can do about it. Like it doesn't, the airspace is like water. It's public.
Yeah, and
know
you
what I mean?
can't shoot down a drone that's flying over your house.
No. But the problem is with the gray area with that is like, I like to use like the farmer reference. So like if a farmer's on their property and they see this drone flying around and they shoot it down, like I don't think they're going to face any civil liabilities because that farmer's going to be like, well, I didn't want that on my property and I consider that my property. Like it's so gray right now that people would just be like, take it to Judge Judy, I guess. Like, I don't know. Like, you're not going to get any, you know what I mean? It's so weird, man. There's nothing really like red tape. Like it's not like cut and dry type of stuff.
So maybe because laws haven't caught up to the commonness of drones, like, I mean, maybe that's an issue that the military also is seeing. I mean, do they want to shoot down every drone that comes by?
The problem is like the FAA does require you to become licensed if you are flying a drone. Now, that's not all drones, but it's the majority of drones. Like even like your civilian drones that have any type of video or tracking or anything like that, you technically are supposed to become a pilot by taking their $5 like exam, and then you get like a number, and then you're good to go.
Okay.
The only reason I know that is because I am a drone pilot at my PD. So you have to take the test. It's quick, and then you're literally like considered a fucking pilot.
Okay.
And then you're good to go. You do have to, obviously, you have to pass the test. You have to go by like certain feet, like over an object, and like your tracker has to be on so planes can actually see you on their radar, stuff like that. Like there's a ton of like reasons for it. So I guess if the FAA really wanted to like really like cut some nuts, they could like find out if some of those drones have serial number trackers or something. They probably could figure out who's flying them that's not following the rules and probably charge them that way if they really wanted to do it.
Yeah, so I mean, you would think that, I mean, maybe they are looking into this and they're like, well, it's not really a problem. It's just people that they're not getting any, they're flying drones over, but they're getting the same information that they would get from, Google Maps, right? Like, I just don't know what information, like, could they possibly be gathering? If it is China or Russia, like, what are they doing? Taking videos? They know, everybody knows where all the missiles are stored, okay? Because you can go on Google Maps and you can look, you can find the missiles, okay? You can literally see them. They're not, like, hidden in underground secret bunkers and things. So, I just don't know what people think is going on. Like, what is the worst case scenario? Like, they're not carrying missiles. So, I don't know what people think is going on here. So you mentioned that Chinese weather balloon, and I was thinking about that too. So like that was something crazy. I was making the news. Yeah. Like you'd see, it's over this state now. Every single day you'd see one. Yeah. Eventually you'd be like, why aren't they doing anything about it? Well, eventually they do shoot it down. So, they must have talked about it. They considered it. They shot it down. Then there was like camera equipment, I think, on it, right? Yeah. And it was from China. And then you never heard anything about it again. No. I tried to look today to see what was the result of that, and you cannot find any articles about it. So, like, what happened to that?
Dude, I don't know. Like, look, I don't know if there's, like, some conspiracies with, like, Knuckles with China or something like that. It's just weird. Like, it's weird, like, if China is next to Russia one of your biggest, like, not enemies, but like kind of the big brother
Like
that
rival.
you don't like? Yeah. Why the fuck would you wait from Alaska to fucking South Carolina, bro? Like, they went through across the entire country, and they're just like, oh, sorry, like, we lost control of it. No, you're China. Like, you don't lose control of it, dude.
Well, it might be that, I mean, they weren't really too concerned about it. That's what I guess I'm trying to say is, like, I mean, they eventually decided, well, yeah, I guess go shoot it down. But it took them a long time to come to that decision.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, it was just a camera. They probably assumed it was a camera anyways, right?
Yeah.
So like, okay, yeah, it was just a camera. They might have shot it down just in case it was something more than that. But like, it's sort of like if China flies a plane over the U.S., like a regular plane, you can't just shoot it down, right? No. So I think there's stuff to be considered here before you're shooting down aircraft. Like, what are we shooting down? I mean, with these, if you have an SUV-sized drone, like, are we 100% sure there's nobody in there? Because, like, what happens if you shoot it down and somebody does die or something like that? Well, then now what? Like, even though they were following an aircraft carrier or something like that, like, which you shouldn't be doing. Well, if someone dies, like a Russian soldier dies. I mean,
not even, dude. It's like a Make-A-Wish kid who finally got to fly.
Yeah.
Like.
But if somebody dies from another country, like, that probably could cause more issues than it actually solves. And the government's kind of hand-waving it because there's nothing they can really say that's going to stop people from talking about this. Like, they could say, okay, well, yeah, it's just China flying drones, we're not worried about it. Well, they're going to be like, well, are they in cahoots with China? Like, are we compromised?
It's like Trump with Putin. Trump said several times, he's like, I don't talk to Putin.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like Putin. That's not like a thing. So maybe you're right. Maybe you're like on that. I don't know.
Like, I mean, I don't trust the government 100%, but I do think that, I mean, I don't know. Why would they let this obvious threat go? Like, there's got to be a reason, and they probably have more information than we do.
For sure.
And it's probably a lot. It's not Joe Biden, okay?
No.
And
he don't have no information, dude. There's.
Like, I mean, I did hear an interview from him. He was like, well, there's nothing to worry about. We're not. Yeah. Like, okay, well, that's
Yeah, it is wild.
Now I feel better. But like, there's a lot of people that probably go into the decision of whether or not to shoot it down, and they're all in consensus to just kind of leave it. So I'm sure that it's fine. Now, one thing I wanted to say is going back to the UFO thing. A lot of these videos, they look a lot like the UFO videos. Like back in the 90s, whenever you would have these UFO sightings and things, like, is it possible that those were just early drones?
Maybe.
Because they were saying, like, oh, well, they're taking turns in ways that, modern aircraft can't do. Well, like, now drones can fly in all directions. Maybe those were all just drone sightings back then.
Maybe. Well, do you believe in alien existence or no?
Well, I'm just one of the guys that says, well, I mean, obviously, statistically, there's got to be aliens out there, but I don't know if I buy all the visits that we've had.
Sure. Yeah, I would say probably like 90%, over 90% of the UFOs that we're seeing are probably some type of explainable process. However, there are some interesting things. I'm sure you've seen, like, the aviation commander guy that spoke on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
He talked about the time he saw a UFO. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he's like, there's no way that a manned aircraft, like, there's nothing on this earth, the way it defied all physics, it's not even possible.
That is the kind of person, like, I'm willing to listen to about this.
Because he knows his shit.
Yes. If he came out and gave his theories on this situation, I would 100% believe him.
You're good, dude.
But not these crazy tinfoil hat guys that are actually weighing in on this situation.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us this week. We have a very interesting topic on true crime next week, so please join that. Please subscribe and like, and we will see you again. Thank you.